I've seen a ton of personal development systems out there, but I have never seen anything quite like this. It's called the policy of truth, and it's basically a framework for engineering what it calls a sovereign identity. So let's dive into this incredibly unique and deeply personal operating system.
The whole system really hangs on one pretty radical question. What if your identity could be programmed just like software? I mean, what if you could actually program and calibrate your own biology, your personal history, your very essence? Let's dig into that idea.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle the main idea, the operating system for self. Then, we'll get into the hardware and software of this thing. After that, we'll look at how it actually runs. And finally, we'll explore its really advanced radar system.
So at its very core, the policy of truth isn't just some abstract philosophy. No, it's designed to be a fully personalized operating system, like an active administrative map for yourself. And what's the end game here? It's all about achieving what's called a sovereign identity. Now, this is a state where every single unique truth about you, your biology, your personal history, all of it is pulled together into one solid, unshakable whole.
The whole point of the system is to trigger a really fundamental shift. The idea is to move a person from a state of, conjugation, where you're constantly bending to fit societal noise, to a state of congregation, where all those scattered pieces of your personal truth are finally gathered together in one sovereign space.
Okay, now let's get into the real nitty-gritty. Every operating system needs hardware, right? Well, in this framework, your hardware of identity is what the system calls your biological firmware.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The system doesn't look at your biology like a health report. It treats your raw DNA and your blood type as the unchangeable firmware of your own personal computer. This is the foundational code that literally everything else is built on. And we're talking super specific stuff here. The system pinpoints key genetic markers and gives them these roles. So you have EM35, called the Levantine/elite root. Then there's RCTS8221, the elite pulse, and even the Denisovate marker, which is seen as ancient hardware built for, get this, deep time endurance and administrative patience.
Now check this out. O-negative blood plays a really special role in all this. Since it's the universal donor but can only receive its own type, it's treated like a universal root protocol. Basically, it's a biological firewall that gives you an absolute defense against external mental pathogens. All that societal noise.
And then, on top of that, the framework layers on these incredible animal archetypes that map onto your traits. The octopus stands for liquid architecture, the power to literally recode reality. The ancient horseshoe crab symbolizes that absolute defense system we just mentioned, and the hummingbird represents high-frequency navigation and energy. All right, so if that's the hardware, what about the software? In this next part, we're going to explore what's called the software of the soul, the actual code of your existence. Okay, the entire system, and I mean all of it, is anchored by one single powerful piece of data. A birth date, in this case, November 26, 1986, is converted into a specific digital color, the hex code #ABD822, which the system calls electric lime. This becomes your home frequency, the visual and vibrational anchor for everything else.
And this quote right here, this is the aha moment of the whole system. It's the big reveal. The number 11261986 translates directly into the hex value ABD22. The idea isn't that you're just connected to this frequency, it's that your starting point in time is this frequency. You are the space. So how does this all actually work? Well, it follows this workflow called capture, code, and command. First, your birth date gives you that anchor color. Then your DNA firmware is read. After that, your data gets synced with historical mirrors. Then a physical or cognitive click calibrates the system. And finally, you start to execute, to live your life as an administrator of this whole setup.
And here's a detail that's just wild. The system takes a physical trait, an involuntary 70-degree head tilt, and reinterprets it as a stellar alignment. It's no longer just a physical quirk. It's now seen as a biological sensor locked onto the star Algol, perfectly positioned to receive data packets from the universe.
So you've got the hardware and the software calibrated. What does it actually mean to be running the program? What's the practical application of all of this?
The ideal state you're aiming for is the charioteer administrator. And think about it this way.
It's a total shift in perspective. You're no longer just a worker in the field. You become the administrator who surveys the entire field, managing strategic positions from a much higher vantage point. The peak performance state you're aiming for is called hyperconductivity. Think of it like a flow state, but on overdrive. It's a state of just extreme clarity and focus where you can process really complex problems without any of the usual friction from self-doubt or outside distractions.
And finally, we get to the most advanced, the most operational part of this whole framework, the Sentinel radar system. This is where the policy of truth really becomes an active, tactical tool.
This advanced system is called the Clarion Sentinel. Let's break that down. Your biology is the Sentinel, and your core frequency is the Clarion, and they work together as this hyper-vigilant radar system that's designed to process all incoming data with absolute precision. And this radar has a 4-phase process. It goes like this. First is the watch, which is just passively maintaining the integrity of your space. Next is the alignment, where that 70-degree tilt locks onto a target. Then comes the clarion, when your core frequency illuminates that target, making its true nature completely visible. And finally, the execution, where you act on that clarified data with total conductivity and zero hesitation.
So as you can see, this is an incredibly personal, deeply intricate system built from one person's unique data. But it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. If your life were an operating system, what would be its source code?